morning, everybody. Tom Metalhead Weatherman here. Hopefully everyone's doing well. It's a quick little follow-up video to what we had talked about last night. And, well, anyone that has missed it, we have an enhanced risk for severe weather around the southern and central plains today. This is a tornado and wind-driven enhanced risk. In particular, the tornado threat is pretty high today. There is a 10% hatched risk and a 5% area that's pretty broad at this point now. In comparison to last night, the 5% area has expanded further out to the east. We're now getting parts of central Missouri into the action, western Missouri, and then also southwestern Iowa. Good chunk of Oklahoma's in here now, as well as parts of Arkansas and northern Texas. Not too surprised because we did call this out yesterday. So if you're in the green, brown, or yellow here, you have to be on the lookout for that tornado threat here. The environment is very, very favorable. Damaging wind threat also is going to be pretty high. There is an enhanced risk as well for that. No hatched risk at this time. Not really expecting one currently, but as we know, the weather tends to change at the drop of a dime. So really the best thing to do today, if you are within an area of interest, is to make sure that you are prepared for all hazards and heed your watches and warnings. And also, of course, as we mentioned, with all hazards being possible, hail is very much a factor as well. Not exactly the greatest risk we've ever seen for that. The environment is great for tornadoes and damaging winds. Hail threat, I wouldn't expect any significant hail that'll crack your windshield or anything it'll like, but even so, you have to be watchful of that as well. Excuse me. So, quick look at the environment before we head to work here. We are planning, of course, to go live as we mentioned last night, but we already know the deal with the wind profile. Kinematics are very impressive for today, and also instability is pretty well suited. We have values getting close to 1,500, maybe even 2,000 for some of these areas here. And this also lingers into the evening hours, especially over towards Oklahoma. So very interested in seeing what happens over here. Like I said before, there was a conditional supercell threat here, and if that happens, we could even get a nocturnal tornado event here as well. So keeping an extra close eye on this region, along with our enhanced risk region over towards Kansas and parts of northern Oklahoma. So another thing we'll go ahead and take a look at is the supercell composite, and this kind of backs up the theory that I had here, or at least gives evidence to the theory that we had here yesterday. This is showing the favorability of supercells within a given environment here. And starting out in the early to mid hours of the evening here, you can see that the supercell composite kind of favors more towards southern Kansas and the Oklahoma border as well. But watch what happens as we get closer towards the midnight hour. This is where we start to see much more favorable parameters over towards Oklahoma and some pretty impressive numbers. It's not going to be a long duration event in either case, it looks like, where we get those peak numbers, but even so, we still have to be watchful nonetheless. And this also is kind of backed by a parameter that I don't always like to use, but considering that we know the environment here, we'll go ahead and take a look at it. It's the significant tornado parameter. As we get later into the evening, again, pretty much seeing the same thing along with the supercell composite here, where we're getting pretty impressive numbers here with the SIGTOR. So look at this loop here in particular, where we're looking at the pink and red here. This is the low level winds that we're looking at. So we're getting good wind shear and also some pretty solid speed shear from the surface to the 850 millibar range, which is about 1,000 feet above our heads. Critical factor when it comes to tornado genesis here. So we've got turning of the winds with heights. We have winds changing at different speeds at the lower levels of the atmosphere. So definitely need to be on watch for the threat of tornadoes, of course, as we mentioned before. All the other factors are there as well. Sufficient moisture. There is a little bit of an inversion going on here, but I don't think this will be enough to stop it. It may slow the storm down just a little bit in regards to its tornado potential here. But watch what happens as we get later into the evening. Look at how the SIGTOR parameter picks up over here, and we'll do another sounding here as well to go along with it. What you'll notice is that we have a pretty similar look by this point. Biggest inhibiting factor might be convection, actually, with this system here. If we get good convection, we get supercells to form, then this comes into play completely. But if these congealed into a line, the threat may taper off just slightly here, but I still would expect maybe a couple of tornadoes. But if we do end up getting some good convection here, I think that we will actually end up potentially even getting an enhanced risk here. So definitely need to keep eyes on east central Oklahoma and eastern Oklahoma as we get later into the evening and maybe even into the overnight hours here. So the last thing we'll look at is the reflectivity here. Not much has really changed with the timing of our initiation here. In recent time, we were thinking that there was actually going to be some early convection here that was going to slow these storms down. That does not look like it's going to be the case this time. By the time we get into the early afternoon here, we do get some storm initiation right around, let's say, 19Z, so that would be about 2 o'clock central. These storms really start to ramp up by the time we get towards about 5 o'clock central and really take off from that point. The peak, I would say, is going to be right at about 8 o'clock central, and then this is where things kind of get interesting. There is chance for a couple of prefrontal cells ahead of the main line here, and those are the ones that we're going to be watching the most as we get towards east central Oklahoma. Eventually, of course, as expected, we expect this line to consolidate completely, bringing not only a damaging wind threat with this, but also a pretty gnarly flash flood threat too. So right now we need to be extra careful of that. You'll see the risk factor over here in the bottom left corner. And then, of course, we'll watch this progress off to the east and kind of dissipate from there. With that being said, hope you guys stay safe today. I will see you guys a little bit later. Until then, it's been Metalhead Weatherman. Have an awesome rest of your day.